Who are the people who feed homeless animals, and why do they keep coming back? People who feed homeless animals are rarely loud, noticeable, or publicly admired, and most of the time they pass through the city unnoticed, blending into the early mornings and late evenings when streets are almost empty and life seems quieter than usual, yet it is exactly at these moments that their presence becomes most meaningful for someone who has nothing except hunger and waiting. These people are not driven by a desire to be seen or praised, they do not post daily photos proving their kindness, and they do not expect gratitude, because their actions are not a performance but a personal choice that often grows from deep emotional experiences, quiet losses, and an understanding of vulnerability that cannot be explained in simple words. Take Elena, for example, a middle-aged woman who works long hours cleaning office buildings and lives a modest life where every purchase matters, yet every morning on her way to work she stops at a small market to buy the cheapest food she can find for the cats living behind the heating pipes near her apartment block, cats that most residents pretend not to see, cats that survive winter only because someone like Elena refuses to walk past them. Elena does not give these cats names, not because she does not care, but because she has learned that attachment can hurt, and still she knows each one by their habits, by the way they move, by the look in their eyes, and when asked why she keeps doing it despite complaints from neighbors and the extra burden on her already limited budget, she simply says that if she does not come, they will still be there waiting, and that thought is something she cannot carry with her. People like Elena often understand hunger in a broader sense, not only physical hunger but emotional emptiness, the kind that appears when you realize that no one is waiting for you, no one is asking how your day was, and no one would notice if you quietly disappeared from the routine of everyday life, and it is exactly this understanding that makes them stop where others continue walking. There is also Robert, a man who works night shifts as a security guard and spends most of his life awake while others sleep, and every night during his break he brings food to a silent dog that waits near a warehouse gate, a dog that never barks or jumps but simply sits and watches, and for Robert this silent companionship means more than conversations that feel forced or shallow. Robert lost his son years ago, a loss that changed the way he relates to the world, making noise unbearable and loneliness familiar, and when one night the dog did not appear, Robert waited longer than he was allowed, not because of responsibility but because fear returned, the same fear of loss that never truly leaves, and when the dog finally came back limping, Robert sat on the cold ground and cried quietly, not for the dog alone but for everything he had never fully healed from. People who feed homeless animals are often told that their actions are pointless, that animals cannot be saved one by one, that resources are wasted, and that gratitude will never come, yet what these critics fail to understand is that the purpose of kindness is not efficiency or global impact but the ability to remain human in a world that constantly teaches indifference. Many of these people have experienced being ignored, dismissed, or emotionally abandoned at some point in their lives, and when they see a stray animal searching for food in trash bins or hiding from the cold, they recognize the feeling of being unwanted and unseen, and this recognition creates an immediate response that feels less like a decision and more like a moral reflex. A young woman named Aisha, who studies design and struggles financially, still sets aside money every week to buy food for the cats near her building, not because she believes she can change their fate entirely, but because, as she says, they never ask her why she has so little, they are simply happy that she came, and for someone who lives with anxiety and constant self-doubt, this acceptance without conditions becomes a rare source of emotional safety. Animals do not judge social status, past mistakes, or emotional instability, and for many people who feel misunderstood or exhausted by human expectations, this simplicity becomes deeply comforting, allowing them to express care without fear of rejection or criticism, even when the rest of the world feels overwhelming. Psychologists often describe such people as highly empathetic, but empathy in this context is not a soft or pleasant trait, it is a sensitivity formed through pain, through moments when help did not come, and through the realization that suffering often remains invisible unless someone chooses to notice it. Feeding a homeless animal is rarely about saving a life in a dramatic sense, it is about acknowledging existence, about silently saying that someone matters enough not to be ignored, and for many feeders this small act becomes a way to heal parts of themselves that were once neglected. They do not see themselves as heroes, they get tired, frustrated, and sometimes feel helpless, yet they continue because stopping would mean accepting a version of the world where turning away is normal, and that is something they cannot make peace with. These people understand that kindness does not require witnesses, and in a culture focused on proof, numbers, and recognition, they choose to do good where no one is watching, leaving food under staircases, near fences, behind garages, and walking away without expecting anything in return. And perhaps the most important thing they teach us is that changing the world does not always mean grand actions or loud statements, sometimes it means changing one moment, one night, one small life that depends on your decision to stop instead of walking past. So when you see a bowl near a building, or food carefully hidden from the rain, or a person quietly leaving something behind and disappearing into the street, remember that you are witnessing a choice that goes against indifference, a choice to care even when it is inconvenient, invisible, and unrewarded. And maybe the real question is not who these people are, but whether we are willing, even once, to see what they see and feel what they feel. As this story continues, it becomes clear that people who feed homeless animals are not trying to prove anything to the world, they are not chasing recognition or moral superiority, they are simply responding to something inside themselves that refuses to stay silent when faced with need, and this inner response often becomes a quiet habit that shapes their everyday life in small but meaningful ways. Over time, feeding homeless animals turns into a form of dialogue without words, where trust is built slowly, day after day, bowl after bowl, and the animals begin to recognize footsteps, voices, even the sound of a bag opening, while the person learns patience, consistency, and the value of being reliable in a world where reliability has become rare. Many feeders notice that this simple routine changes them, making them more attentive, more grounded, and sometimes even calmer, because when you take responsibility for another living being, even in such a small way, your own problems stop feeling endless and start finding their place in perspective, not disappearing but becoming easier to carry. Some say that feeding homeless animals saved them during difficult periods of life, during grief, depression, or emotional burnout, because it gave their days a sense of purpose that did not depend on success, money, or approval, but on presence and care, on the simple fact that someone would be waiting. There are moments, of course, when it feels unbearable, when an animal disappears, gets sick, or does not survive the winter, and in these moments the feeders grieve quietly, often alone, because society rarely acknowledges this kind of loss as real or important, yet for those who care, it is deeply personal and painfully real. Still, despite the pain, they return, because kindness, once chosen, becomes part of who you are, and turning away would feel like losing yourself all over again, and this is something many of them are no longer willing to do. Feeding homeless animals also teaches an important lesson about limits, about accepting that you cannot save everyone, but you can help someone, and that this someone matters, not as a number or a statistic, but as a living presence sharing the same world. And perhaps this is why these people inspire quiet respect, even when their actions go unnoticed, because they remind us that humanity survives not through grand gestures, but through thousands of small, invisible choices made every single day. If you have listened to this story until this moment, thank you for staying, thank you for your time, your attention, and your openness, because listening itself is already a form of care in a fast world that rarely slows down. If this topic resonated with you, if you have ever fed a homeless animal, helped someone in silence, or simply felt the urge to stop and not walk past, you are warmly invited to share your thoughts in the comments, because your story may help someone else feel less alone. Please consider liking this video if it touched you in any way. It helps this message reach more people who might need it, and if you would like to stay with this channel and explore more thoughtful, meaningful stories together, you are very welcome to subscribe and turn on notifications. Thank you for being here, thank you for your kindness, and thank you for choosing empathy, even in its quietest form.